Nigeria took its pride of place amongst the Committee of Nations when it gained independence from British rule in 1960. Celebrations at the time by the three tribes, Yoruba in the west, Igbo in the east, and Hausa in the north, signaled the beginning of a country divided along the very lines that unites them. The birth of a new constitution heightened confidence and capacity to finally commence the journey to nationhood. Neocolonialism, nepotism, and disrespect for the rule of law triggered a deep socio-political disorder as the struggle for power by the political class established a nexus between politics and commerce, two elements that will define Nigeria's future. This is the story of a colonial inheritance, as many today ask, why pave the way for future problems if Nigeria is to be favored as an independent country?
Talk of the 1945 struggle by workers led by the late Michael Imodu, the protests against traditional rulers who colluded with colonial regime, as was the case, the protests led by the late Mrs. Ransom Kuti against Alake Ademola the first, which led to his suspension and removal from the throne. Removal from the throne. So you had all these protests against colonial. In fact, many young people were jailed for asking questions, as was the case in 1946, when the members of the Secession movement were tried for sedition and jailed by the colonial regime. But those who were said to have won the struggle for independence were the nationalist politicians who had a deal with the British colonial regime to retain the structures of colonial rule under an independent Nigeria.
Unity has for years been the rallying point for successive administrations to keep diverse tribes and religion as one. But the country would face deeper problems. A civil war, 6 administrations were toppled in the nation's 60 years history, and a transition from military to civilian rule, an ill preparation to take charge of its own future. The problems still lingers to the present day.
One of the greatest lessons we need to learn as a people is that we need one another, irrespective of our tribe, of our religion, of where we come from. As a people, if Nigeria must survive, we need one another. We don't need to be divided by our religion or our tribe. We need one another.
Regionalism, introduced by British rule, compounded the problems of a young nation. The lexicon carried by its founding fathers defeated the aim of unity and purpose of which it seeks to achieve. The northern members of the Legislature thought they could not support a motion for self-governance by 1956 because the North wasn't ready. Emotions ran high, the Macpherson Constitution having foreseen how the regions would differ about how much autonomy they should have. A new and lasting solution was needed. Macpherson's Constitution would have to change.
Towards 1960, you had a lot of conferences Lancaster conferences, where an agreement was reached by the nationalist politicians, led by the late Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Ahmadu Bello, to run the country along the lines of federalism, again having regards to the experience of some countries where you have multi-ethnic and multi-religious societies. People. So the whole idea was to exploit the diversity to build a nation. Of course, you had independence, political independence in 1960. But because we didn't have economic emancipation, economic independence, poverty has remained the lot of the majority of our people.
Regionalism took its roots in the political fabric, further polarizing the country, struggling to be one. All political parties in the 1956 elections, all won regionally. Today, though, the three major political parties at independence have metamorphosed. 91 political parties now exist, with more signifying intent to register with the Electoral Commission, INEC. October 1, 1960, Nigeria became an independent sovereign state, albeit with regional tensions, which many thought will be overcome. Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Nigeria's Prime Minister at independence, reflected the country's optimism at the time. In the present, the optimism struggles to be sustained.
The number one problem has been lack of political will. And without political will, any of the thing we're doing will have no meaning. That is the first serious challenge that we have. The second challenge is lack of discipline. By that I mean, sticking to rules, staying on track, making hard choices, not the easy ones that we have made in the past. Of course, we talk about issues of infrastructure. We all know whether it is road transportation, it's energy, it's water, provision of water, and then even communication. There are challenges. As long as those challenges are not resolved, the huge infrastructural gap is not fixed, we cannot begin to talk about industrialization.
Metamorphosis of the lexicon deepened the fabric of disunity. Evidence are divisions along tribal lines that were paid little attention to by the tribal, religious and political elements of the country in the days leading to its freedom from British rule. The challenge still visible in today's reality.
You need to define unity first before you talk about a sovereign nation like Nigeria uniting. For me, unity is like coming together to be a whole. It's more or less dealing with agreeing. Unity is neutral, if you look at it very well, the concept of unity, because people can be united on causes that are good or bad. So when you look at Nigeria, having said so, and you see that it's a country that holds diversity within its borders, whether it relates to issue of ethnicity, religion, culture. There's serious diversity in this country. And when you try to unite at that level, you see that it is very, very, if not absolutely difficult to achieve unity. You see, but what I sincerely believe we need is peace.
A serious crisis emanating from the general elections. You are the ruling party that wanted to retain power at all cost, while the opposition parties fought to take control of the center. The crisis could not be managed, and then the military intervened in 1966, January 1966. Under the first set of military rulers, there were contradictions which led to coups and counter-coups, and eventually the Civil War. For 3 years, the country fought a war. And of course, the slogan was that Nigeria must be kept together at all costs. Without addressing the monumental crisis that led to the war. So we patched it up.
Now we're 60. The question you asked is, are we still going to have a country? We've gone through so much before now. Things that will have naturally broken us, yet we are still together. We had political upheavals, and we're still together. So I believe strongly that we should look more into our strength, other than saying we should divide. What Nigeria needs is, we just need to do refreshing. We need to refresh. It's like a computer hibernating. So once we reboot, then we now refresh. We now start from there.
Page 1581.
The Parliament sits at the National Assembly with two arms, the Senate and the House of Representatives,
The ayes have it.
both saddled with enacting laws that will better the governance of the country. It is in these very chambers that inequality is seen to disrupt national unity and coexistence between the three regions. Northern representation amounts for about 50% of Parliament. Clarity on this evolution is today echoed by politicians who served at the highest capacity with diligence.
The problem in the National Assembly, if there's any relating to inequality, maybe as a result of maybe some regions having enough states, and that may dovetail also into the issue of lack of population census. I believe that if we were to have an effective population census, which now results in the constituencies being redelineated, and we are able to have a member of the House of Representatives representing roughly a population of 300,000 people, that may be cured. But you see, in a democracy, I don't know why it is such, but it's worked for so many countries and for so many years. It's always said that majority carry the vote, while the minority is always entitled to its say. Democracy is not about the majority running roughshod, believing, oh, we have the votes and we can do anything. No, it means listening to the disenfranchised, listening to the minority and solving their problems.
With each state, with each community, with each region or sub-region, there is a definition of restructuring. The way this one defines it is not the same way that the other person will define it. For us, in the APC, there is a commitment to restructuring by way of devolution of power. That is our own understanding of it. And we have already started with the constitutional amendment in the first term of the administration. We have achieved the financial independence for local government councils, for state houses of assembly and the judiciary and all of that. So it's an ongoing thing. Now there is a call on the interested members of society to present their demands for constitutional amendments to the National Assembly. So another round of constitutional amendment will go on. So if anybody wants to change anything, whether it is in terms of state or local government or even the federal structure, the National Assembly is ready to listen to them. Let them go and present their demands and walk through the democratic process.
The year 1999 witnessed a major turning point for the country. A return to civil rule, but with a twist. General Olusegun Obasanjo, who was once commander-in-chief, became the president. Hope easily found its way into the hearts of Nigerians with a new leader.
No society can achieve anything near its full potential if it allows corruption to become the full-blown cancer it has become in Nigeria. One of the greatest tragedies of military rule in the recent times is that corruption was allowed to grow unchallenged and unchecked, even when it was clearing for everybody. The rules and regulations for doing official business were deliberately ignored.
Thankfully, corruption is being fought, whether rightly or wrongly. I believe that emphasis in Nigeria is placed on enforcement measures rather than the root causes of corruption, which is social insecurity. You know that one very well. And then maybe problems associated with over-concentration of resources at the center. These are the key roots of corruption in Nigeria and must be dealt with. But unfortunately, emphasis is being placed on enforcement measures. It's just like trying to deal with a tree and then you are applying solutions on the leaf and the fruits, forgetting about the roots.
His tenure was, however, plagued with challenges that will define Nigeria's frustrations. Epileptic electricity supply for a country in dire need of industrialization and building a middle class to support its growing population.
We need to see job creation. And it's not that difficult because Nigeria is an absolutely resource country. It's just that we don't have the relevant tools of implementation. Take Apapa, where we are sitting now. A new report just came out from a Dutch consulting firm that as a result of the constraints and conundrum, which of course you must have gone through coming here, Apapa loses 20 billion in terms of revenue that the government would have earned. Vessels are now coming here. Times 365 days, that is 7.3 trillion naira a year, almost equal to the national budget. And what do they need to do? It's not much work to be done. It's just the will to get it done. So, yeah, the president seems to mean well, and he's made two technical corrections which people misunderstand, partly because the government did not explain it properly. There are two things. I generally agree with removal of subsidy and increase in electricity because the subsidy thing was asymmetrical. That means as a result of guys here taking advantage of what all of us will benefit, they make the money to our exclusion. So what they've done is to remove the asymmetry so that it's equalized.
Government is now having its resources through, centralized dashboard, the TSA as we know it. Of course, there are multiple sub-accounts, but they are linked together, and government can see at a glance what resources are available to it. And government does not anymore borrow its own money, and government does not pay cost of maintaining a running account. Government does not pay TSA. COT. The CBN doesn't charge COT. Yeah. So there is all this as an advantage to TSA.
2015 was to become the entry of a new political administration and political party. The All Progressives Congress APC made promises to Nigerians to fight corruption, insecurity, and build the economy.
The newly elected government is basking in a reservoir of goodwill and high expectations. Nigeria, therefore, has a window of opportunity to fulfill our long-standing potential of pulling ourselves together and realizing our mission as a great nation.
But its inheritance spans not only that. Agitations from Islamist ideology group Boko Haram continued a guerrilla-styled war destabilizing an impoverished northeast. Kidnappings and ritual killings in the west, farmer-herders conflict in the north-central, militancy in the south-south, and secession campaigns in the east were to become the lot of the Buhari administration that came to power in 2015.
You have to have agreement on how to go about these things. And once we as a nation have said we subscribe to democracy as our system of government, we should be able to operate within the institutional structures of democracy, meaning that elected members of parliament who are representatives of our people should determine all matters of this nature. If anybody feels very strongly, including those champions, ethnic and religious, who are calling for sovereign or national conference, if they think they are electable, let them go and run for office, run for Senate or House of Reps, and go to National Assembly and introduce their own bills and see if they can succeed. If you are not electable, that means your people don't trust you. You can't make any difference. So there's a lot of discussion going on these matters, and people are entitled to express their own opinions. But the practical thing for anybody seriously committed to seeing constitutional changes in the country is either to contest for office, go to National Assembly and pass and seek these changes yourself, or work with those who are elected in order to produce the changes that you think you want. It's the question of majority decision.
But not all hope is lost as the government promises a better administration as the nation celebrates 60 years of independence.
This government has done a lot to change the business environment in the country. We have achieved so much in easing, the ways of doing business in the country, and guaranteeing security of foreign investment. So the major challenges are of infrastructure. You need power. We have to develop power. We need to develop roads and bridges, and generally do a lot more with the ICT infrastructure. So once the infrastructure is in place, we obviously will need to do more to develop human resources. This is a country endowed by a large population, and certainly with the education and skills training, this country would do much better than we are, and there are ongoing efforts to enhance the utilization of these potentials.
Nigeria is the only oil-producing country in the world that does not have functional refineries. China has a population of about 1.4 billion. India has close to 1 billion people. Nobody is talking of breakup because the ruling classes in both countries are looking for solutions, scientific solutions to problems of underdevelopment. But here, if you have the Oduduwa Republic today, the Egbas and the Jebus, the Kitis and Nondos, the Oyos and the others are going to have the same problems. So, it is not about breaking up the country, it's about breaking the problems of the country. That's what we should break up, the problems of the country.
For me, I don't think Nigeria can break my heart again. As a matter of fact, if Nigeria hasn't broken your heart, you don't love her enough. To love someone carries with it the risks of being hurt by that person's choices. There are so many out there, whether it's you, it's me, it's whoever in Nigeria, so many out there. if not 99.9% of Nigerians that love Nigeria that have been hurt by the choices we keep making as a nation. You see, to say that we have lost it, I mean, it's over the board, because there's no country out there that doesn't have challenges. There's none. Whether they are 60 years old, as Nigeria will soon be, or they're even more than that. And these challenges will never go away. Gladly, we as human beings did not evolve to be content and happy, so that Nigeria becomes like the Garden of Eden that produces everything for us, and we just sit in joy and we are happy. No. I believe that we as humans evolved to be fulfilled. And in order to be fulfilled, it means you must consistently and constantly take on challenges that are greater than yourself and overcome them. So we cannot at this juncture surrender, to the challenges of primitive forces of socio-economic stagnation and say that, we are calling it quits, or that we are surrendering, we are giving up, because the problems are insurmountable. I believe that we can surmount these challenges in Nigeria. We have lost time, but we haven't lost everything. And I sincerely believe that with commitment, with the right political will, we'll get out of the doldrums.
With a promise to fix the economy, fight corruption, and stop insecurity, items many believe the government falls grossly short of. And as Nigeria celebrates 60 years of independence, many are hoping to see concrete evidence of true independence where neocolonialism and dictates of international commodities like oil, highly priced in our country, will have their prices set by the country itself, and the promise of a true federated country is established in peace and unity.